Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Thank you all for coming today and joining in this workshop. It's brave to come to a workshop on the fourth step. I presented this workshop once before, and I was doing my fourth step, and the reason I wanted to do a workshop on it was because there was a lot of things that kept me from doing it for a really long time. And I started to write down and look at why I wasn't doing it and came up with some thoughts about that. And some of the material I put together for this workshop helped me move on and do my fourth step inventory. Some of those blocks for me was, there were triggers in the language for me. The word moral, for me, if I'm carrying around shame and someone says the word moral, I immediately go to, I must have done something wrong. So that word in itself was a push away for me, and I realized, I went into the dictionary and I said, well, what exactly does this word mean? Because I thought there's going to be an authority figure, a school teacher, a ruler, telling me how I need to morally look at my entire life and what I've done wrong. And that was not okay with me. So I started to look at fairy tales and fables and realized that a lot of these little stories throughout hundreds of years have to do with lessons. And things happen to the characters, and there is a lesson in the story, and the moral of the story is. So I started to reframe the word moral to say, oh, what are the lessons of my experiences? Hi, Art.
Hi.
Did you get the handout over there?
Did.
Okay, great. What are the lessons of my story? You know, have things just crashed all around me for no good reason, or am I a hero on a hero's journey learning something special, and what are the new skill sets and gifts of this fable of my life? So that was one thing that really helped me. Actually, if you want to know what the definitions I found of moral, the noun is a lesson, especially one concerning what is right or prudent that can be derived from a story, a piece of information, or an experience. Usage such as the moral of this story was that one must see the beauty in what one has. That was this example. 2, morals, a person's standards of behavior or beliefs concerning what is and is not acceptable for them to do. What I liked about this, if I notice that it says a person's standards of behavior, not someone else's standards of behavior about what I do. So again, these were softening definitions for me. Then I wanted to look up inventory, because in program we hear a lot about, oh, he took my inventory, I took her inventory, and did you take your inventory? And it's used in a way that isn't always positive, but it's a pretty neutral word by dictionary standards. Inventory is a complete list of items, such as property, goods, and stock, or the contents of a building. A quantity of goods held in stock. In our warehouse, you'll find a large inventory of new and used bicycles. In accounting, the entire stock of a business, including materials, components, work in progress, and finished products, and making a complete list of this. So again, the fourth step, instead of bringing up all these fears, I could look at this, okay, I'm just really taking stock from the beginning till now, what I got, what's in progress, where I am, what I've done and why I did it, how I want to do it differently. It's just, where am I today, and what are my assets, what's working for me, what do I want to do more of, what do I love, what's not working for me, where do I consistently go over and over that I keep feeling pain over, that's not working, how do I change that? So there's something really neutral about it. There's nothing in the fourth step that says anything about having to do anything about any of it. It's a just, let's just see what's in the fridge. Let's see what's up there on the shelf. And the other thing was, I'm trying to find the actual wording of step 4. Anyone have it? Made a searching and fearless moral inventories of ourselves. So again, I was struggling with this, and I met with someone, an old-timer in program, and he pointed out to me, he said, fearless. If you are making a searching and fearful moral inventory of yourselves, you are not doing step 4. That is not step 4. So if you're going, oh God, I can't even look at this, I'm such a bad person and these horrible things, and that's not step 4. That is using the same old negative thinking to beat ourselves up, and using it under the heading of, oh, I've got to climb the recovery ladder to the next step, and procrastination ensues, and the same old, that's not what this is about. This is about gentleness. It's about honoring and loving who we are, what we have, what we've learned, and looking underneath a little bit and seeing, oh my goodness, I didn't know I had all this good stuff buried under here. I was so busy with this stuff, I never even looked under the cupboards and saw that I have all these skills and gifts, and I forgot that I love to paint. These things come up when we can take some of the things off the surface that keep distracting us and draining us, and that we stay obsessed with. So all of this was good for me. And, sometimes I do need to take some of the literature, and there will be trigger words. And, one of the things about recovery for me is I don't take anything face value. I won't even take if something's written in the recovery books at face value, if there's a word in there that triggers me, or that I associate with something in my family of origin as a shaming word, I'm allowed to change it, because we can take what we like and leave the rest. This is, these tools are here to help us, to help you. They're here to serve. They're not here to be a be-all authority that, it's not a test to pass. So, for me, the word moral was one of those, so I had to look at that differently. Another one is the word defect of character. I mean, for me, a defect is something that's broken, defective. You take it back to the manufacturer and you say, this one doesn't work. So I don't use that word. I use default of character for myself, because I know it's just a default. It's a place I go to that worked for me before, that it's not good, it's not bad, it's just what my particular skill set of coping would have me do, because I'm not defective, as they say. What is it? God doesn't make junk? Far from it. So, I wanted to present this again, really, because this seems to be the step where newcomers shrink away, and sometimes people will be in program for years and years and not get through their fourth step. And I think, take about 2 years to do it. And it would have looked different at any point. And at one point, I didn't even think I was done. I am a perfectionist, and I thought I had to keep going. But my sponsor said, you're done. You're done for now. We'll go to fifth step, and, there's always going to be more inventory. You can always come back. And, later in the steps, we continue to take inventory on a daily basis. And so that's just a little background on this. And the idea of the fable of it being an inner story rather than an inventory is it's instead of making it about him and she and my mother and my father and my sister and this teacher at school, and is to really bring it in as if you were the author of this story. You wrote all the parts. I mean, it's, even if it's for a game, even if it's, well, maybe that's not true. I couldn't help it when I was a child if my father spoke to me in that way. That is true. On the other level, for fun, we can look at it like people look at mythological stories, where everything is a metaphorical representation of everything else. So if you were writing a Shakespearean play and you chose it to be your life, what would be the lesson that you would want your audience to get at the end of it? And apparently there are only something like 23 human dramas. So no one is uniquely dysfunctional. You can actually go get a book for people who write plays or, dramatists, something like the 23 human dramas. There's the rivalrous brother one. There's the one with the triangle with, they're all out there. And we all have elements of them. So this is really a way to detach from the seriousness of ourselves and say, why did I pick this particular drama? What is it that I really, what's the gold I really wanted in my life that I would choose to go through that to get? And I think for me, it has served me, whether it's true or not, it's just a choice, but it has served me to look at the things that have happened to me that I really did not want to experience, and probably wouldn't choose to experience again. To look at it like there is a gift in here, and I can tell you, one of the traits they talk about is our willful determination, and with other people's lives, we can get the job done, we can really organize stuff. We're very persistent. We don't let go easily. We're good caretakers. We can run businesses and families and then not take care of ourselves. But the thing to see is here is one of those traits of being so good at everything, being so good at digging really deep and managing lots of stuff, is that it could take us a long time to get to that point of surrender. And on the other side of surrender is really this wonderful gift of, why have I gone through this? And I, just from my own experience, I can say, oh my gosh, did I string this out a long time? I mean, there are the stages of grief here, and it's somewhere in your handout. The stage of bargaining. I spent a long time in that. It's second to the last page. It came from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's, and she has these stages which has to do with death and dying, but it also can do with grief in any area of life where there is loss. The denial, the no, not me stage. And that's actually, for me, one of the worst stages, because to not know that something's wrong is a terrible place to be, because, nothing can change in that place. Although it may not hurt, but it I can't move forward when I'm there. I really stayed in anger and resentment a long time. And anger for me was energizing. And I quite liked it. I think I was quite happy with my anger because I felt like I had a voice. So I don't even like looking at anger as good, bad. And I think we come from a culture where anger is really looked at as a negative. And a lot of families, parents don't like their kids to get angry, and they say all sorts of things to kids when they get angry to get them to not do that, because it's bad to get mad, sit down at the dinner table. But And also for women, we're not considered to be attractive if we're angry. And there's a lot of baggage around anger. I have a recently deceased grandmother who died at 94, who actually was a CoDA member since the age of 70 and got me into CoDA. And she was, I love my anger. Me and my anger are very good friends. So, I mean, I look at it like the gas gauge, The anger is when the light goes off and says you're out of gas. If you don't have that light going off, you're just going to keep driving till you're out of gas. When I'm angry, I have to look at what's going on. So I think I might agree with her on that. And then, this is going off topic a little bit. My learning curve with anger was the pause button between feeling it and having the conscientiousness to think ahead of time about how to express it to someone rather than go from stimulus to instant expression of it, which didn't work out well for me. The bargaining stage, if I do this, you'll do that. I think I probably lost about 3 or 4 years between stage 2 and stage 3. And none of those things changed anyway. When that wave is coming along the beach, that big wave, screaming at the wave, it's not going to not crash on you. So sometimes surrendering gets to the finish line, which is what is happening and what does that mean for me and how do I feel about it and what do I want to do about this now that I know how I feel about it. Depression, well, that could be a shocking stage of realizing the bargaining isn't working, the anger isn't working, the resentment isn't actually making the other people feel any different about what they're doing. It's so infuriating to find that out, that it's actually only within myself that resentment is causing pain. I always felt like if I hold on to it long enough, they'll eventually feel it and they'll change. That's a great myth. And then what brings me here today, and maybe some of you, is acceptance. This is what happened. This is what happened. And now what? Where do I go from here? What do I want? What do I feel? And acceptance, it could go back into, I find a lot, it can go back into, yeah, this is what happened and it was all my fault. Or, oh, this is what happened and I should have, I oughta, I could have, because the acceptance, I just keep wanting it not to be what it is. And someone described to me, sorry, I'm going to stop talking for a second. Are the people coming and getting the handout when you sit down? Okay. Please, anyone raise their hand who didn't get one? Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? I'll keep them back here then. It's also kind of hard to hear you because of that.
Is it? I feel like I'm talking so loudly. I'm glad you said that. Well, you've got it above you. I can project, okay? If I'm overly projecting, someone tell me because okay. All right, so let's say we're in the acceptance stage. Maybe we're not, but let's act as if we are. We have step 1, 2, and 3, which to me, I look at it like, let's say I'm on this boat and I'm on this really rough set of waters and things are coming at me and I feel like I must do something to stop these waters bouncing me about. And step 1 tells me I can't do anything, so just surrender. That saves some energy for me. And then when I want to feel despairing and feel at the mercy of all these other people that I am victim of, I can do step 2 and know that, you know what? Even if you surrender, you are not alone and it's not over yet. So I can come to believe that a power greater than myself, even when I'm surrendering, is going to move things in a good, orderly direction. And step 3 is I have all these schemes and ideas of how I can fix it. And the desire to do something to change the way things are going, I can go to step 3. And sometimes I'll make a list. I'll have about 30 things I need to happen, and I'll write down 5 of them that I can do in the next 12 hours. And the rest of them, I just move to the other side of the page and I say, God, you take care of these. I'm just going to go to the gym, eat my lunch, just do what's possible. So let's say then we're in this place of acceptance. This is when we can do step 4. We can just not be emotional about it. We can just say, what's happened here? How did I get here? What traits got me into this relationship that didn't work out? Or what beliefs had me feeling that I needed to depend on this person to give me X, Y, and Z? What beliefs had me taking my strengths and skills and projecting it onto that person and not owning any of them myself, and then letting them walk away with me? There's all sorts of, I'm just picking, I'm just randomly picking from my own life, but we grow up with these ideas and they just get set in stone and we don't even look at them and we don't think twice about them. So, I had something just the other day. I had to put in a code for something, and the phone pad was in a different order. Instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it had 10, 9, 8, and the digits were in a different number. And I continually kept doing the same geometric shape to the digits as I've known it, which shows me that I'm doing that in every area of my life. I have patterns, and when I'm not thinking, I'm driving here, I'm thinking this thought again. And so this is a great opportunity. Step 4, and taking, writing your own fable is a great opportunity to pause. To pause and be conscious about your choices and know that you're worth it. And if you can really look at a belief and unearth it and go, that really isn't true. I have really believed that about myself my whole life, but here is a bunch of evidence to show me that it isn't actually true. I had things like that where, in my own situation, my qualifier, I was in a marriage with someone based on his family of origin, had certain traits and habits. Well, being around those traits and habits, because I tend to be more acquiescing, and I want to ruffle other people's smooth ruffled feathers, and my nature is to be more maternal and nurture and calm people down, was to just make myself smaller around those beliefs. And what I didn't realize was happening was it was like a raindrop on a stone, where I was getting a little worn away, a little worn away, a little worn away, because every day I didn't go, no, that's not true. Every day I didn't do that, I started believing a little more in this illusion, this set of non-truths about myself. And I have not been in that relationship for 3.5 years, and what's so interesting is all of a sudden I seem so good at all these things that I was told I was so horrible at. And not only told, but I wasn't even allowed to do them. Now, for whatever reason, some people have scarcity mentality and think that, the world's not big enough for the two of us to shine. So if you're going to be with me, one of us is going to shine and one of us is going to make dinner, And so, I quite liked cooking. So I actually had this belief that, coming out of my marriage, that I had this big, hard mountain I was going to have to climb. I didn't know anything. I hadn't been in the world for so long. I was going to have to go out and, learn how to do this. And it was just this uphill, laborious thing. And then I realized that all I had to do was stop not doing me. That's all I had to do. When I stopped putting all these things on me that prevented who I was to come out, I didn't have to go to school. I didn't have to get a degree. I already had all these skills and already had all these abilities. I just had a little bird in my head saying, you can't do that. If you do that, so-and-so will go away. If you do that, so-and-so will be mad at you and you will be abandoned. And, fear of abandonment, people pleasing, I mean, it had me by the throat. And interestingly, I still have those traits. I still want to people please. I still have fear of abandonment, but I do me anyway, and I'm at the stage now of my recovery where I do it anyway. There's this phrase, feel the fear and do it anyway. So I go through all the anxiety afterwards. They call it afterburn, where you don't want to make the boundary. You're afraid of what's going to happen. You make the boundary, and then you have this afterburn of shame because, we're trained not to stand up for ourselves. And then when we do, we feel like, oh my God, something horrible is going to happen. I'm a bad person. I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I actually stood up for myself. Everything's going to go wrong. And it often does not. It often starts going right for the first time. And yes, people do get mad. And people do go away. And that's okay, because I love you, but I have to love me first, because otherwise I don't have a me to love you with. So the other thing I wanted to say about inner story, what I've noticed in recovery and with myself is, they actually say you bring your recovery to the meetings and you bring your mess to your sponsor. And sometimes people bring their mess to the meetings. And, sometimes you'll just get unhealthy meetings where there's offloading and this and story and this happened. And I don't know if any of you have, sponsored anybody or, work with newcomers. And I know for a while, when I first came in and I was a newcomer, there would be people saying, I cannot hear about him anymore. I just, like my clock, I'm here to talk to you. If I hear one more thing about he, him, I'm out of here. Like, no more. And I'd be like, but you don't understand. This is important. This is important to the story. This is important to me. And then I eventually got it, because I think there's a tendency to recycle the framing of our story. And I have an example of that. There's certain archetypes. Well, these are hero archetypes. So before I go to the heroic archetypes, here's a little quote I found in this book about the heroic journey. We'll pick certain themes in our lives, like it could be betrayal. It could be I'm just never enough. Whatever belief we've decided, we tend to bring into a new situation and only look for evidence to find that that's true. And we may not consciously be looking for that evidence. So without actually reading the story, there is... yeah, you sure can. I don't know if there's any more handouts. No, there you go. Okay, so what this is about, it's a book about, a heroic journey, and that everybody has one, and like the fable I was describing earlier, with the moral, the lesson, and basically we want to have the situations in our lives be describable to others. We want to be able to say, if you meet a new friend or you go out on a date, and we want to be able to tell our story in a way that feels good, that doesn't feel like, I was a victim and this happened, and I was, that is, if we keep telling the story in this way, we keep bringing that version of the story into the next story, and into the next story, and into the next story. This is an opportunity to detach from the way we believe the story really is and look at it in a different way, or try it on in a different way. So let's say we only have a short time in which to tell these stories. So maybe if the fit isn't exact, we can see and describe complex stories in terms of, one of those 23 human dramas that Shakespeare has. It's a shorthand method for communication. So that's one thing. But the other part of it is, and I'm looking for this page, if you think of a story in your life, or you think of your qualifying story, you think of that. I know I'm in here because, there's one part of my life that no matter how well the rest of my life is going, this thing drives me nuts and I can do nothing about it. And it's just like the dragon in the corner of my garden, and I don't want that dragon there. And I can't make it stop, and I can't make it go away, and I can't make him sleep. And all I can do is go pick flowers in the other part of my dragon and keep doing steps 1, 2, and 3, because every time I go back to that dragon and try and slay it or make him sleep or talk sense to him, I'm not well and I'm missing my life again. So, I'm here because I have one of those dragons in my life, and it distracts me and annoys me and takes me off my beam and takes me out of my body and puts me into obsession. And I'm powerless over it. But what I do have power over is how much attention I give it. How much of my life am I willing to, in addition to what I've already given, give to an unsolvable situation? And to me, my codependency, if someone says, well, what is codependency? I might say, it's just obsessively trying to fix the unfixable and never giving up, for me, that's what it's felt like. So what I wanted to say is if we keep telling the story in terms of the dragon, there's a whole 98.9% of life that isn't being looked at. Because dragons are noisy, they want our attention. Our codependency is noisy. Negative thinking in our head is noisy. Traumas from the past are noisy. They want our attention, and they want to live. It's like a tantruming child wants our attention. For me, it's the more, I've heard this over and over, and I keep writing a note to myself to do it, and so I'm reminding myself again. Gratitude is the way to make the rest of the garden grow. When you look at something, a person, a situation, a set of events, and you look at it as a gift, the gifts in your life multiply. When you water the fruit tree in your backyard, it grows. When you feed the wolves that bite and scream, they stay fit. So it's, what are you going to feed? What do you want to feed in your life? So looking at step 4 again for me was, God, I have so neglected myself. Someone said to me, I don't want to hear about that guy one more time. I'm looking at you, and you are like a birthday cake, and you're like a 5-year-old on your birthday who won't even eat the cake. It's like, stop ignoring the gifts of who you are because you're obsessed with something that's broken that you have no power over. No power. You want to try again and see if you do? And have that feeling again of it's not working and be drained again? So I have to remind myself of this on a regular basis. Is the CD man here? No? Okay, he's not. I have to look at the time for a second. Okay, we're doing well. So I'm going to stop talking. To record what you say, I have to bring the mic around the room, so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to ask some questions. Yeah? So, would anybody like to share why they came to this workshop? Why step 4? Anybody?
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
I've been in CoDA for 3.5 years, and I have yet to do step 4 because of the fear of bringing out some really painful things that I'm afraid will take me all the way back. Just finally getting strong enough, and I'm really embarrassed about it, which just makes me feel worse. So that's why I'm here, to get some tips.
Thank you. Has anyone had that same experience here? Okay. So one of the fears in this fearless inventory is that if I look at it, it will take me back there, and I'll feel powerless over it again, and I won't be able to stand in the light of it. And okay, so that's one. Is there any others?
Well, I'm here because I realize that what I am dealing with today, what I'm aware of, what I've seen, what has surfaced, are issues that I completely was unaware of 15, 20 years ago. So I'm here now because I think perhaps there are issues now that I'm manifesting or that are still driving my bus that I'm not aware of, and so I'm just looking for tools to do a quick, or not quick necessarily, but a thorough a thorough work. So it's just a reality check for me, that I want to come in and see if there's something that's going to trigger something else, if there's something that perhaps because I was afraid I overlooked, and didn't really address. So that's why I chose this one.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, I was intrigued by the title of the workshop and telling my inner story, and using the 4th step as a kind of a framework for that was the perspective I got on that. And as I've evolved through my program, I'm now starting to read a different book that has given me a completely new context for the foundation of my dysfunctional behaviors. And it's been transformative. And so I'm really looking forward to writing another 4th step. And I thought your perspective would be helpful, and so far it has been.
Hi, I came to this particular workshop because when I did my 4th step, I expected the parting of the sea and, this big epiphany to happen and everything would be cured and taken care of, and it didn't really work that way. So I kind of thought, well, maybe I wasn't working it right. So I'm interested in how other people did it and, what success they had, to where maybe the way I did it the first time or the second time didn't really go deep enough or bring up the issues.
I'll get to you.
It took me forever to do my 4th step. I did it, but when I did it, my sponsor noted that I was doing my partner's 4th step. I wasn't doing mine. So, but then finally when I got it, I did it formally, but it was very kind of intellectual, not so much visceral. But since then, things are occurring in my life that are making it more of an adventure to discover myself, in the way that when we meet someone or when we go to a movie, it's a whole new story that carries us. Well, now it's my story that's going to carry me. So I'm not so fearful of it. I'm more kind of looking forward to it.
Hi. It took me 4 years. I was in the black hole in another program and then in CoDA, wallowing in the 4th step. And last year went through the steps with the workbook, which was very powerful for me and very magical for me. And I did the 4th step and I shared it with, I did the 5th step and shared it with my sponsor. And he said, "That's great." And I'm like, "That's it?" And I was like, I just couldn't believe that I was done, or, through that stage of my life when I did it. And then later on in the year, I took my workbook as I was working through the rest of the steps back home and lost it. And so that's why I'm here, is to reconnect with the fourth step, to go deeper. I'm going away next week and to write a story, write a book, and I know I'm going to be taking this with me. So, but it's good to get out of the black hole, and it is a process, because I was much the perfectionist as well, and it's an ongoing journey. So, thanks.
My name is Richard. I'm codependent. This is my first conference, so this is kind of exciting. And actually, I believe I'm in the wrong workshop, but I'm too codependent to leave. No, it's just a bad joke. I've been in recovery for 5 years, and it took me about 2 years to get a sponsor, so I guess you could say I have trust issues. But that was such a powerful thing, and I started to realize that God is doing for me what I cannot do for myself. In 2009, I did a really powerful, the old proverbial my attempt at perfection, the searching and fearless moral inventory. And boy, was I pissed off when I didn't get a certificate of healing and get rid of the codependent label. So I moved to the desert in California, and I started a 4-step about a year ago. And I have been talking about writer's block. I have been totally blocked. But giving myself permission, I figured if I took 2 years to get a sponsor, 1 year to do this next 4-step was perfectly okay. Progress, not perfection. I'm perfectly imperfect and all that sort of stuff. And this miracle happened. My therapist gave me some stuff to work on about 3 weeks ago. And I'm also a practicing procrastinator. So let me do the math here. It was Thursday night, because today's Saturday. I just had the sea parted, and the 4-step started writing, and I did almost an all-nighter working on the 4-step. And I'm so excited. I'm on such a roll that when I saw this workshop, I said I have to be here, because I want to absorb all the 4th-step mojo from each and every one of you, because that's how my recovery works, is each and every one of you, no matter how well you're doing or how much you're stumbling with whatever it is you're doing, it encourages me in my recovery. So I'm really grateful to be here.
Thank you. Unless anyone has a burning desire. Okay, we have one here.
Thank you. I came because of the curiosity. I saw your write-up, and I was very interested in the way you worded it. And I'm at the 4th step, and it's been about 6 months now that I've been playing with it. And everybody kept on saying, do the format. And I've done so many 4 steps, and it's like it took me certain places. But this one kind of evolved, like what you're talking about, the fable, and the story started. And I started writing these individual stories naturally about each one of the people that I'd been in relationship with in my life. And all the stories started showing up. I have a friend of mine who lives in the Bay Area. He's a professional storyteller. So I called him, and I was telling him, you won't believe what I'm doing with this 4th step. It's all this natural storytelling process that's coming out of me. And I'm learning things that I don't felt I could have gotten to just by writing a column across the board. So I really appreciate just being here and your insight, because this validates where I want to go home and finish.
Thank you so much. I want to add something to that, because it reminded me of the format. There's all these different 4th step formats that you can do. I was really stuck with my sponsor, because I was using, and it's a great book. Don't get me wrong, the green book, and it has all these questions you have to answer. And the 4th step goes on forever. You've done one page, there's another page, and another page, and another page. And I one day went to the beach meeting and said to her, I said, I hate this format. I just want to write it out in a long journal form. And this was a year after I'd been struggling with it. She goes, she said, I had to tell my sponsor the same thing. I just couldn't do it that way. I knew I had to do it like a journal. And nobody told me I could change the rules. You mean, no? How come no one told me I could ask? So you don't ask, you don't get. It's another example of being so small, wanting to do it right, wanting to pass the test, and looking at it, and just the confidence of going, it's not working for me this way. I need to do it a different way. Oh, yeah, of course. Well, sometimes people need to do that. Sure. So, it's there for you. This is just a way. These questions are from other people in these books who have been in recovery a long time. And, they're sharing their experience, strength, and hope. And also want to remind you that a lot of the language is adapted from AA, and that's a different personality set, than codependence. I mean, it's just some of the language may, like my son, I can make rules and rules and rules and rules and rules, and he hardly feels them. That's his personality. With me, you tell me a little tiny rule, and I will just shrink into fear, because a little thing will expand for me. So I think in the language, some of the language that's appropriate for another fellowship we're borrowing, maybe isn't right for me. So if it's not right for you, find what is right and keep writing. Before we go on, I want to talk about resentment, another dictionary situation. My fourth step was just filled with resentments. I mean, a year into it, I thought I was done, and I sat with my sponsor, and I said, I have more. And I had this list of resentments, and she said, oh my, you're really mad at those people, aren't you? Like, you've really got a lot of resentment. It was a long list, and it was all true, and it all happened. And I called someone in program who had a similar qualifying situation to what I had, who my sponsor didn't. And she gave me a prayer, a forgiveness prayer, which I don't have with me right now. Actually, maybe I do on my phone. But the idea was pray for these people, pray and bless them and wish for them everything you would wish for yourself. And I've heard that a lot, and I was just like, I don't, and I had to be honest that I didn't. And then I have heard that even if you say, God, I don't really mean this, but I'm willing to say it. I'm not feeling this right now. I'm completely lying and faking this. I'm just saying the words because I want to get better, and I don't want to carry this around anymore. And, okay, here it goes. Okay, so I've said it. And, do that long enough, and I'm told in 2 weeks, goodbye, resentments. You will shed about 90 pounds. And I'm just passing on what's been passed to me. I'm not a saint. I'm not, I still find it really hard. I still like my anger, and but I don't act on it. That's the difference. I still feel angry, and I've just added some humor to my anger, like a Saturday Night Live episode when they're mad about something, I just add a little humor to it and lighten up about it a little bit. And I constantly scheme in my head of all these plots and ploys to get things to change and stop the way things are. And I just really know now that nothing works. So I go through it in my head, and then I just get back to, I've just played that out in the entertainment, section of my brain like it was the movie of the week, and now I'm going to sit on my hands and do nothing, because otherwise I give up my life again. I'd step back in again. So resentment, I don't know if anyone has ever heard the etymology of resentment, but in French, sentir means to feel. SCNT is a verb which means to feel. So I look at resentment as to feel again. So a resentment is something we felt at an injury, but every time we think about it and think about it and think about it and replay it and replay it and replay it, we're being injured over and over and over and over again. So who's the first perpetrator? Is it you? No. who's the next 1,000 perpetrators of the same crime? In this head, we are doing to ourselves what was done to us over and over and over again, and are far more damaging to ourselves than the original injury. And the same thing with anger. Anger happens in a loop. A certain belief, something will happen that'll trigger a certain belief in me, or a certain set of things that, from childhood, that's my hot button. You don't want to do that. You don't want to tell me I don't matter and I'm invisible and my voice doesn't count. No. You tell me that and you will have a ninja on your hands. And once I get into that feeling that I interpret something as if that's what's happening to me, this person's really doing this because they want to invisibilize me. They don't want me to have a voice. And, I believe all this stuff. Then I'm just stuck in this rage. How dare they do that to me? When the fact is they're not doing it to me. Has anyone ever bumped you accidentally online at the grocery store? And you've been like, hey, what are you doing? And, you turn around and it's some person who's facing their child and no idea that they hit you. But the moment they hit you, you think, who is this person who has no respect for my space online, who's pushing me? Or road rage. There's this great image, I think it was Pema Chodron, this Buddhist writer. She tells this little story that I love, and I'll just recount it here because it's such a good example of anger at taking things personally that are not personal. It's about this being on a boat, and in the distance, there's something coming to the boat, to your boat, and you see it coming, and you go, oh no, that boat person, they're coming at me. They're coming right at me. Oh my God, they have it in for me. They're coming at my boat and they're going to knock over and sink my boat. The boat gets closer and closer and closer and closer. And then when the boat actually comes up close, there's no one on the boat. It's the wind. The boat's just out there. So a lot of times the things that I'm angry about have nothing to do with anybody having it in for me personally. They're just doing what they do, and I just happen to be standing there wanting them to do something different. So resentment, again, is feeling again. And we got to find a way to break out of this loop, or we're constantly angry and we're constantly resentful. And resentments are they're like boulders, to still feel that hard done by, to still feel like a victim, is not going to show us that's not it at all. You're amazing. And that person couldn't see it, not because you're not amazing. That person couldn't see it because they have issues. And move on to where you can be amazing. And when you can feel loved and supported unconditionally, and you can do what you do well, and people are not going to hurt you for doing what you do well. There's nothing that says that we have to change dysfunctional people to make our world happy and free. We can actually change ourselves and make different choices about who we want to be around and what jobs we want to do and what lives we want to live and what our professions are and our boundaries. It's up to us to make that choice. And the world generally will treat us about as good as we are treating ourselves. So, it can start with this inner story. I want to do something different than I did last time, which is last time I handed out this fable and everybody scribbled for 15 minutes and then we got to read it. But today I was thinking I'd really like to do it collectively and see what happens, because I think the shape of the story maybe is the same, even though the content of the story may be different. And that's an instinct. But is everybody willing to do that with me? I wanted a chalkboard and a dry erase board, but I don't have it. So I'll just have to sit here kind of like the game Mad Libs. And I will fill in the blanks and we'll go around and then I'll read the story. And it will be our collective fable with the lesson at the end. Is everyone okay with that? Okay. Well done. My handwriting is really hard to read. I would say, who wants to read this? But I don't know if anyone wants. You can read it? I'll read it? Okay. There was once a rabbit who loved to eat carrots, ride horses, and play and laugh. Every day do you want me to say he or she, by the way? Okay. Every day she used to wish that Prince Charming would appear because she was lonely. As time went on, she soon became used to her solitude and didn't notice anymore that she was lonely. Then, as months and years went by, she began to fear death. She decided to reach out because something had to change. A few things changed the direction that for some time had been percolating. It took months and months and months to get her attention. Even though when it happened, she felt ambivalent. After working her recovery and making conscious contact with her sponsor, she soon became internally grateful that she was honest because it gave her a renewed perspective. Before that, she wasn't able to see that being honest and truthful would bring her peace. She loved life very much, and when she got in touch with feelings, it was hopeful. She felt adventurous. Now she realizes that she doesn't have to control the outcome, and that by accepting all the love that she was missing, it was really there all the time. Nothing was ever missing because it was just that she was denying it. And by treating others like it was herself, all that was happening was it was giving clarity and a perfect perspective. Even though she thought little of herself, it turned out God's gift was all around her. What she wanted was awareness, and what she got turned out to be better. God instead thought it fit for her to have serenity. The reason this is so much better is that it is eternal, and now she can be at peace and move on. The moral of the story is, everything is part of the fabric of life. I am eternally grateful for everything happening for a reason, and I now have self-love, and I am willing to forgive myself and others because I know that everything works out for the best. So did anyone identify with any of the parts? The carrots, the fearing of death, I identified with that the rabbit was perfectly happy, having fun in life and carrots, and then just, it wasn't enough. You know, had to go out and get into a little bit of trouble because of being afraid of dying all of a sudden and needing a bit more, and then coming back full circle to realizing that, you know, having fun and chasing and playing and eating carrots really was enough. Okay, well that was fun. That was different. They may not always come out like this. I mean, I did a couple, and it was a different story, and it's just a fun way to put. Let's say your brain is a bicycle, you know, and it's rusty, and it takes the heaviness out of putting the pen to the paper. I have this quote at the top of the handout, which is a Hans Christian Andersen quote that says, "A human life is a story told by God." And so sometimes that's helpful is writing down things about my life in the way God would see it rather than the way I see it, which can be more victim and right and wrong and suffering. And God might see it as, oh, you know, that person just really didn't get this, and you thought that because he thought that, and she thought that because you thought that, and you know, and yeah. So let's see. We have 15 more minutes here. Oh yeah. Well, there are certain archetypes. The hero, I like to think of the hero as if you were writing your own screenplay, your script of a movie. The hero is always the one who goes out into the world and something happens. They call it the inciting event, the crisis, because it's boring to watch movies where everything's going well. So, and then we want to see the hero, how they solve the problem. And so if we're the hero, here are 6 archetypes, and we will have various ones in our lives, and some will dominate more than others, and there'll be a little bit of all of them. But one is the orphan, and the orphan, and the plot structure. And this is in your handout, I believe, is it? Or maybe, it might not be, because they had a limit. France had to limit it because mine was too long. So I'll just tell it to you. The orphan, the plot structure is how I suffered or how I survived. And the gift of that particular story is resilience. So these are the fables, the crises that happen that will at the end have a lesson and a gift. Another archetype is the wanderer. And the plot structure is how I escaped or found my own way. And the gift is independence. Another archetype is the warrior. Okay, I'll slow down. Okay, I didn't realize you were taking notes. The wanderer gift was independence. The plot of the wanderer was how I escaped or found my own way. The next archetype is the warrior. And the plot structure is how I achieved my goals or defeated my enemies. Not always. Huh? And the gift is courage. The next archetype is the altruist. A lot of moms have this one. The plot structure is how I gave to others or how I sacrificed. And the gift is compassion. And I would say that's compassion for self and others. The next archetype is the innocent. The innocent. And the plot structure is how I found happiness or the promised land. And the gift is faith. Lastly, the archetype of the magician. The plot structure is how I changed my world. And the gift is power. There's I'm just going to read what's under here. This was written by the author. It's 6 archetypes. The book is The Heroic Journey. It says, to discover which archetypal plots dominate your life, pay attention to your conversation for a few days, noticing the stories you tell yourself and others about what happens to you. Then notice which archetypes dominate in these recurring storylines. So I find it really helpful to listen to myself and hear what I'm saying over and over again. I love the slogan, act as if. For me, if I act as if, what that means is I'm holding a place in my energy for a new behavior. If I'm filling up and obsessing with the old stuff that already happened and it's still living in my head and it's taking up all my energy, there's no room for new. There's no room for the next exciting adventure. So the act as if is for a day, for an hour, saying for the next hour, I'm going to act as if my life is going amazingly well right now. I'm in a healthy, happy relationship. I know what it is I want to do for a living. I know what I'm good at. I seem to be getting along well with people. I know when to not engage. It can all be fantasy. but you can play with that. You can play with that because really our unconscious minds that are way beneath the surface of our thinking analytical minds, it really doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality. And when we watch a scary movie, we'll feel all those feelings and all those chemicals will get released in our bodies. When we think obsessive thoughts or recurring thoughts about something negative that happened to us 5 years ago, we're still releasing those chemicals in our body, and we're still experiencing that trauma as if it's happening now. So you can reverse that. You can use that to your advantage. One of the most scary questions anyone asks me is, if you could have everything you wanted, what would it be? I'm so busy thinking about what didn't go the way I wanted it to go and whose fault it was that I haven't actually sat a lot of time going, well, what if no one was to say no? What if there wasn't a yes but? What if you really were the designer of your own experience and life? How much time do we invest in things in our todays and tomorrows? Are we investing 90% of our energy in our yesterdays, in our minds? So we really can play with these archetypes. We can really play with our beliefs and our self-concept. And I encourage you to do a searching and fearless inventory and really look at, what's in the closet that's had the sell-by date that you don't really need to store there anymore. Why don't you make some room for some new, good things that work and, decide what you want to keep. And I love that the fourth step, I heard people share about how, the seas did not part. Well, it doesn't say that it will. It says then we tell someone else, and then we write down a list of the things that we are willing to let go of. And we're 3 steps away from asking God to change us. So if nothing's happening after step 4, it's not supposed to. It's not supposed to yet. Keep going. I think I've said everything I want to say. If anybody would like to share anything. Thank you so much.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here. remote control is connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.